Yamaha YZF-R1M. Yamaha spent decades racing at the highest level of motorcycle competition, and the YZF-R1M is what happens when that racing knowledge gets poured directly into a street-legal machine, built around a cross-plane crankshaft engine that fires in an irregular sequence. It produces a torque delivery unlike anything else in its class, giving riders a feel that engineers specifically borrowed from Yamaha's factory MotoGP program. The electronic Öhlins suspension reads road conditions and adjusts itself in real time, something that simply did not exist on production motorcycles a decade ago. Top speed sits at 299 kilometers per hour. It is not the fastest machine on this list, but very few bikes anywhere feel this connected between rider and road at that speed. Honda CBR1000 Fireblade. Honda built its reputation on reliability, but the CBR1000 Fireblade was never about playing it safe. This is Japan's answer to the question of how close a street bike can get to a full factory race machine while still being legal to ride to work. The engine breathes through titanium connecting rods, originally developed for Honda's RC230V MotoGP bike, running tolerances so tight they would have been impossible to manufacture just a few years earlier. Aerodynamic winglets on the fairing push the front wheel down at high speed instead of letting it lift, a feature borrowed directly from professional racing. At 299 kilometers per hour, it matches the Yamaha on top speed, but arrives there with a character that is distinctly Honda, smooth, precise, and quietly intimidating. Aprilia RSV4. Italy has always approached motorcycle engineering differently from Japan, and the Aprilia RSV4 makes that difference impossible to ignore. The 1099cc V4 engine sits in a narrow V configuration that keeps mass centralized and allows the chassis to be built tighter and lighter than competing designs. Aprilia developed this engine architecture directly alongside their World Superbike racing program, meaning every refinement that one races on Sunday found its way into the production bike. The RSV4 consistently surprises riders who expect Italian style to come at the cost of reliability. It does not. Multiple World Superbike Championships back up what the spec sheet already suggests. This machine was built to win, and it has. Ducati Panigale V4 R. When Ducati needed a motorcycle capable of winning in World Superbike, racing under strict homologation rules, they built the Panigale V4 R. And then they made it street legal. The engine displacement was deliberately reduced to 998 cc to comply with racing class regulations, which forced Ducati engineers to extract every possible horsepower through aerodynamics, materials, and precision, rather than simply adding displacement. Carbon fiber bodywork surrounds a chassis wrapped in aerodynamic winglets that generate measurable downforce at racing speeds. At 299 kilometers per hour, the V4R pushes the rider into the seat rather than trying to throw them off. Ducati built this bike to race. The fact that it is also road legal almost feels like an afterthought. Suzuki Hayabusa. In 1999, Suzuki changed what the word fast meant on two wheels. Before the Hayabusa arrived, no production motorcycle had ever crossed 300 kilometers per hour. Suzuki did not just cross that barrier, they did it so convincingly that European and Japanese manufacturers immediately agreed to a voluntary 299 km per hour speed limit on production bikes, because the Hayabusa had made the previous standard feel dangerously outdated. Named after the peregrine falcon, the fastest bird on Earth, it was designed from the beginning as a speed record machine, disguised as a street bike. Unrestricted examples have been recorded at 312 kilometers per hour. More than 2 decades after its introduction, the Hayabusa remains in production, still carries legendary status, and is still the bike people reference first when the conversation turns to speed. BMW M1000 RR. Germany entered the superbike conversation late, but the BMW M1000 RR made sure nobody would overlook them again. Carbon fiber wheels reduce unsprung weight so dramatically that the suspension responds faster than any comparable alloy wheel setup ever could. The aerodynamic package generates enough downforce to keep both wheels planted at speeds where most motorcycles become genuinely dangerous. In 2026, it holds recognition as the fastest road-legal, EU-approved production bike available on the European market, hitting 314 kilometers per hour in unrestricted testing. BMW did not build this machine to be conservative. They built it to be the best, and the engineering makes a strong argument that they succeeded. Kawasaki Ninja H2. Kawasaki built a supercharged motorcycle and then made it street legal, which sounds like the kind of decision that requires a second opinion. The centrifugal supercharger sits in the engine valley, spinning at speeds that compress incoming air before it enters the combustion chamber, forcing more oxygen in than natural aspiration could ever manage. The result is an engine that pulls harder the faster it goes, the opposite of what most engines do as they approach their limits. Mirror-finish aerodynamic winglets are machined to tolerances normally reserved for aerospace components. Top speed reaches 337 kilometers per hour, making it the fastest street-legal supercharged production motorcycle ever built. Kawasaki's engineers were asked whether a supercharged road bike was responsible. They apparently decided that was somebody else's problem. Lightning LS218. Everything on this list so far has used a combustion engine. This one does not have one at all, and it is still faster than almost everything above it. The Lightning LS218 runs on a direct-drive electric motor with no gearbox, no clutch, and no exhaust note. Just instant torque, delivered the moment the throttle moves. At 350 kilometers per hour, it holds the title of the fastest electric motorcycle ever put into production. There are no gear changes to manage, no power band to stay inside, and no engine to warm up before pushing hard. The entire power delivery is immediate and linear in a way that combustion engines physically cannot replicate. Electric motorcycle critics argued for years that battery weight would prevent serious performance. The LS218 ended that argument. Kawasaki Ninja H2R. The street-legal H2 was already difficult to explain to reasonable people. Kawasaki then built the H2R, removed every restriction required for road use, and created something that belongs in a different conversation entirely. The same supercharged engine from the H2 is tuned significantly further here, pushing output past 300 horsepower on a machine that weighs under 220 kilograms. Carbon fiber aerodynamic wings are not decorative. They generate real downforce that physically holds the front wheel on the ground at speeds where gravity alone would not be enough. Top speed reaches 400 kilometers per hour on a closed track. This machine is not street legal anywhere in the world, and that is not an accident. Kawasaki built it knowing full well that the only appropriate place for it is somewhere with no traffic, no corners, and a very long straight. MTT Turbine Superbike Y2K. Every other motorcycle on this list uses a piston engine. This one uses a turbine ripped out of a helicopter. The MTT Turbine Superbike, known as the Y2K, is powered by a Rolls-Royce Allison 250 series turboshaft engine, the same unit used in military and civilian helicopters worldwide. Louisiana-based Marine Turbine Technologies took that engine, mounted it in a custom motorcycle chassis, and produced a machine that generates over 320 horsepower while running on diesel, jet fuel, or kerosene. Claimed top speed exceeds 420 kilometers per hour. The exhaust exits behind the rear wheel at temperatures that can melt asphalt if the bike sits still too long. It entered the Guinness World Records as the most powerful production motorcycle ever built. Jay Leno owns one. That detail feels about right for a motorcycle powered by helicopter technology.